Hello, nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Because I have my microphone right here. If it.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Oh, okay. I got relatives in the Twin Cities,
Okay.
but I know that's really exciting. All right,
Also, I could just jump around then with your career so far before getting to Fire Emblem.
whatever you want to do, man.
Okay. So I know the way that you got into SAG was on Buck Rogers.
Yes, that's actually a good story. Should I tell you the story or all right? I was waiter at a place called Wampoppers. Look, my hair. You see the tape? No. Anyway, there was this place called Wampoppers where you dressed up as a cowboy in the top of Universal City, and my first SAG job was Buck Rogers, and so I would during the day I got the night shift. So during the day they had my trailer, Mr. Rose. We're ready for you on the set, Mr. Rose. Blah blah blah. And then I'd go up at night, just right up the hill at Universal Studios, and put on my little cowboy outfit, and go, "Who had the ribs, partner?" And that really that really brought you back down to earth.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that.
Didn't you shoot the episode on Christmas Eve or something like that?
Yeah, wow, I'm impressed. I don't know. I don't think I've ever did I tell anybody that? Yeah, the my big scene, my crying scene, was done on Christmas Eve. And if you've heard anything about crews and everything like that, it's a big group of family and everything, but they're also guys that will break your face
Yeah.
if you piss them off. And it's Christmas Eve, and we've done all the other stuff, but it comes time for my big crying scene, and everybody wants to go home early at noon, and it's like 11:50, and they're going, okay, and here's your close-up, and I'm like, and they're like going, everyone's like this, and they go, okay, that's good. I go, no, it isn't. It's not good. I need another take. And of course, me holding up over 250 people on the holidays. So that's a great example of acting. You have no say so in the thing. So it was like, cut. All right, good night. Merry Christmas, everybody. I'll tell you a real good uh I don't want to knock anybody, but I got to do a lot of those Universal shows at that time. There were all these Universal shows like Buck Rogers, and uh, there was just a group of these. They ground them out, and one of them was Airwolf
Yeah.
with Ernest Borgnine and oh, what's his name? This is
Dan.
about Jan Michael Vincent. You're good. You're good. Jan Michael Vincent. So I'm playing at that time, as I always did, the mistaken gang member. And I was like, young boy mistaken gang member, or in Buck Rogers, farm boy, whatever. So we were shooting on an airfield, and I'm like talking to Jan Michael Vincent, and I have whatever dialogue I have. So Ernest Borgnine, who was such a thrill to meet him, he was big Academy Award winner and everything, really nice man. So I don't meet Jan Michael Vincent. They just put me in my position. They have me rehearse with somebody, and we're on an airfield, and things are going all over. And so he walks up, looks like Jan Michael Vincent, but sort of, and they go, action. So I go, well, sir, I'm not a gang member. I'm a da 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 da. And then he goes, I'm looking around, and they go, cut, it's your line to me. I'm like, an action. Well, sir, I'm not a gang member. Cut, say your line. Ernest Borgnine walks over to me. He's not even in the scene. He said, son, just wait for him to stop talking and just say whatever your lines are. And I'm like, but I'm a new guy. I'm like, but that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. So just trust me. I'm like, okay. So literally it was, I'm not a gang member, sir. Well, yes, that's absolutely right. Blah, 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 blah. And so we go through the scene. Then he hops in a Mustang and starts doing wheelies around the set. Everybody's like, screaming and running across him. And this is, this is where you find out in Hollywood, the stories you hear are usually very true.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that was a great experience for me to be like, nah.
Yeah. Well, I know relatively early on you had is it kind of more like deep cut a TV movie, Isabel's Choice. That was a pretty stacked cast.
That was great. That was what's her puss from All in the Family, who was the nicest woman. I have this effect on older ladies that are famous for mothers. You know, Jean Stapleton, All in the Family. I also worked with Mrs. C. I can't remember her name now. She's a very nice lady from Happy Days. And I worked with Shirley Jones, you know, of the Partridge Family, all later on after, you know, I'm not that old. And they all, three of those famous mothers, all were like, because I'd be doing my rude jokes.
Yeah.
And I did this thing called Cinderella's Daughter with Shirley Jones. And if anyone knows who Shirley Jones is, she's like, you know, one of the great Broadway musical, you know, movie musical women and Partridge Family. And as we're in the middle of the thing and I'm making lots of sexual innuendos to her in breaks and stuff, and she goes, "You remind me a lot of Danny Bonaducci." I'm like, that's not good. And then Mrs. C, I actually worked with her. She's like 90 or something, just the nicest lady. I'll think of her name in a minute. Anyway, she's like, as I'm doing my stuff, she's like, you know, I figured she was going to tell me I'm potsy.
Yeah.
But so for whatever reason, I have that effect on those women.
Yeah. And then I thought it was really cool because do you know who the Epcars are? Richard and
No, what's an Epcot?
Richard and Ellen Epcar.
No.
Okay. Well, one of them was also in The Man Who Loved Women. So I know you were in that. Yeah.
Oh, well, that was one of the great thrills in my life because I got to work with Blake Edwards. And that film, it was Burt Reynolds right before his career. I mean, it was like at the height. He was still like one of the #1 box office guys. Really cool. But remember, these guys were all massive. I mean, it was like Burt Reynolds, Blake Edwards. You know, Blake Edwards, if anybody doesn't know, is like one of the great comedy film directors and drama too. But the Pink Panthers, and my favorite is a thing called The Party.
Mm-hmm.
But so here they're all a little on the older side. I got everybody on the tail end. Burt Reynolds was like super nice, but I said to Blake Edwards, I said, can I like ad lib or anything like this? Hey, whatever you want to do, that's fine, you know. I'm like, because again, I'm, you know, so. But what these guys were so long in the tooth as far as what they did, they'd show up, they go, okay, let's do a rehearsal. So I'd rehearse, I'd ad lib, everybody was totally cool. And they go, okay, let's light it. And they'd leave. They just leave and they wouldn't come back for an hour. And there were guys, you know, nobody's paying any attention to me. Finally, it comes time. They walk in from their trailers. They go, okay, let's do it. One take. They look at me. You want to do anything? Okay, great. All right, let's get the other angle. Then they leave again. It was like, because I'm waiting for all this stuff. And it was just more like, been there, done that. Thanks. Have a nice day. Everybody was very nice,
Mm-hmm.
but it was not anything exciting. And by the way, a little side note on that one, how I got that part, I was on the radio here in Los Angeles on the weekends. I was like a fill-in guy on a really goofy station here in LA. And it was I hated every moment of it. And I'm sitting there, but I was in LA, so that was cool. And I went and auditioned for the movie. And then I went back. It just so happened that I was filling in for the afternoon guy that day. So I'm, you know, going, but your favorite soft rock music. And then the request lines would go on. So I hit a request line and it was the producer going, you didn't tell me that you're that Roger Rose on the radio. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm like a fill-in guy. But by pure luck, he turned on the radio in his office and there I was. And that's how I got the role.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then around that same time, I kind of liked the movie, even though it's what was your experience on a Hot Moves?
Have you seen Hot Moves?
Yeah.
Honestly?
I have the tape, yeah.
Well, if I may I do my favorite line that's my favorite line of any dialogue I've ever had in a movie. Ready? You mean there are all these hot chicks around here and you guys try to score a hooker?
Yeah.
What do you want to know about that movie? I mean,
well, I've met Jill Shalin before, and she's super sweet. So
very nice. And you know, that's one of those kind of movies that you always read about where they had to have them do a nude scene. She didn't, I don't think, but all the other women did.
Yeah.
And there was a beach nude scene, and of course, as a male, I didn't want any part of that. But what was really interesting is one of the leads, her boyfriend. This is going back. Her boyfriend was Charles Hayde, who was on Hill Street Blues,
Yeah.
and real tough guy, and that was her boyfriend. And so we're setting up for the nude scene and the beach thing and all this stuff. It's on the beach in Venice Beach, which of course nothing like dropping your clothes there. And he is circling the set like a tiger, and just, you know, and you have to do the scene where, you know, they're just laying naked. It's just a completely ridiculous, it had no reason to be naked. But the point is that we're supposed to be standing around, but it was terrifying because he's but I managed to get my peeks in. It's a pretty cheesy movie, but hey, you know, we all need to do you know who wrote that movie, by the way? A little side note, Peter Foley, but also a guy named Larry Anderson. If you're into all this trivia, do you know who Larry Anderson is?
I'd probably have to look up the name, but
Larry is a magician, an actor, and he did the last incarnation of the Lucy show, playing her son, I think.
Oh, okay.
And he also was like, I think he did a version of Price is Right and whatever. But I just think it's that was, you know, he did that failed Lucy sitcom, and the pressure was just crazy on him because everyone was expecting I Love Lucy, and she's like, you know.
Yeah.
Is this too much information? Am I giving you too much information?
No, not at all. I think this was rewinding, but what's the story of how you got to be in the opening credits of Three's Company?
You're the only person who ever asked me all these things.
Okay.
What did you look me up on that you found all this? Was it that rewinded article? Maybe that was before all this. I was a page at CBS. I was 18 years old, and you know, I'm like, here's your seat. And this is when Don Knotts came into Three's Company, and the casting director was walking down the hall, and I always was bugging him about getting work, and he goes, "How'd you like to make $1,000?" I'm like, okay. So I show up, and it's the opening credits where Larry gets in the bumper car with which he thinks is a girl, and it's a guy. But again, I'm 18, so they put a wig on me and a mustache. I look ridiculous. And so I shared a trailer with Don Knotts. Now, do you know who Don Knotts is? Well, you know, I grew up as a little kid watching the Andy Griffith Show, and it's freaking Don Knotts. And he was the nicest man, but he wanted to relate to me. Again, I was 18. He wanted to relate to me. So we're sharing a trailer, and he goes, "So, you got any girlfriends?" And I go, "Yeah, well, I don't have a girlfriend, but I've been dating." He goes, "You need to go out with my daughter." Like a girl named Karen Knotts, who, you know, very nice, thank you. And he goes, "You smoke weed?" And I'm going, "Oh my God, Barney Fife is asking me if I smoke weed." And he's just trying to relate to the young kids.
Yes.
So he starts to tell me about this wild parties that he used to have in the 50s with his roommate, Tom Poston. And I'm like, on one hand going, this is the coolest thing ever. And on the other side, it's like, oh my God, Barney Fife is talking to me about wild sex parties with weed. It was like so uncomfortable, but he was the nicest man. But I also, since you mentioned that, I was lucky enough to do a couple episodes as well. And John Ritter, I'd like to say this to the top of the hills, was the nicest, most giving, most wonderful. I'd run into him over the years, never remembered my name, but he would, like, I remember once seeing him at Sundance with his family, and he goes, "Hey, it's my buddy, come on over here, hey." And he's bringing, you know, and his wife and kids are like, "Oh God, here we go." And he just always was the nicest, most. I auditioned for one of his TV shows, and when you came in the room, you know, he made you feel so good. I can't say enough wonderful things about him. We had the same lawyer as best friend, a guy named Bob Myman, and so we'd see each other on different occasions. Again, he never remembered my name, but I was his buddy. But you just knew he was so authentic of the way, and just watching him work. And I don't want to compare the two because I think he was truly the talent. But I have to say, I was lucky enough also to do I don't know, lucky. Hannah Montana, I did a little bit of that. And whatever you want to say about old Miley, she was like so willing to just reminded me of Ritter, and this I'm giving her a huge compliment. But on the set, she would just play with stuff and really try to come and find the comedy. I was always very impressed by that. And also she was very, very nice. She was young, but
Yeah.
she was very nice. I was like, always every disc jockey and every, ladies and gentlemen, all that junk, as it were. And then of course her father would come on the set. Anyway, enough of that.
Well, did you ever, early on or otherwise, did you ever cross paths with people like Michelle Pfeiffer or John Travolta or?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen them around. Michelle Pfeiffer, again, I have mutual, my partner on producing is working with David Kelly right now.
Okay.
And can't say enough amazing things about her. The one that always sticks out in my mind is one of my best friends is a guy named Steve Heitner. And he played Banya the comedian on Seinfeld. And he's one of my best friends. We did Ski Patrol together.
Yeah.
And he had this crazy apartment where it was an interesting group of people. A comedian named Wayne Fetterman, if you know Wayne, writes on Curb. He's been on Curb. There was another stand-up comedian. They had these crazy roommates, and they would throw these insane parties. And at the time, Steve was doing, again, these are old things. Is this going to even be interesting to you?
Yeah.
Called it was a movie with, it's where Alec Baldwin met Kim Basinger, Something Man or something like that. And one of the stars of the movie was a guy who was dating Michelle Pfeiffer at the time. So Steve is having this crazy party, and it's just all of us at our age and everything like that. And then he walks in with her, and it was like a bad movie where here's like 100 people and we're all, and then we all just go, because her beauty, she just radiated this presence, and very, very, very nice woman. She's from Orange County, California, And as far as Travolta, I don't know why you mentioned Travolta. The only thing I can tell you on that one was when I was a page. I really don't have much Travolta stories, but I was although I know Eddie Deason. Anyway, when I was a page at CBS, they were shooting Grease, and so I would there's one female usher, and we would get in the back of the 50s cars and enjoy the cars. And I watched. It was it was a magical thing, but I was just a goof on the side. I had nothing to do with any of it. So.
Well, having because I've interviewed like Rosanna Arquette and Leah Thompson too. Have you interacted with them at all?
Leah Thompson, I have, and again, we do a charity thing, and again, a really nice person. Most of these people are really nice. The one that I always talk about who's not nice. Should I mention who I think is not nice? Because I don't like to tell tales out of school, but the one I always say is. Do you know who it is by any chance? When I was a VJ on VH1, you know what VH1?
Oh,
VJ?
yeah.
VJ stands for Video Jock, and I was very lucky. I was one of the original guys, not the original, but pretty close to it. And I worked with different people on that. I met, massive stars, and it was a lot of fun. One of the people I worked with was Rosie O'Donnell.
Okay.
Anyway, so some people treated their employees or staff very just rude. Now, I don't know if that person's changed, but I'm just saying that there were certain people. Have I made that clear there? I don't try to knock anyone, but I couldn't believe what I saw. And that just was wrong. And then I ran into some of those people later on, and they told me that they don't know what they were thinking and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, oh, okay, that's pretty impressive. And then they went off and did it again. I'm not saying anyone in particular.
Well, was there something in your career that made you get more of a affinity to do voiceover?
My parents were, both of them were broadcasters. My mom was an NPR in Chicago. My dad was a radio talk show host in California. And if you know, like he did Art Bell, we filled in for him a lot and stuff. He was on radio here in LA and in San Francisco. My mom was on All Things Considered and had her own live talk show every Jamaican, every cab driver in Chicago go, "Man, that's your mother." I don't even know what accent I just said. Anyway, so I grew up in a broadcasting family. My name really is Roger Rose. It's like a total disc jockey name. It's so fake, but it's real. And 45 minutes after the others, Roger Rose, everybody. So voiceover, I started when I was a little kid, and no matter what I did in my career, voiceover was always there because I knew how important it was. And I had a talk show on the original MSNBC, and R&R with Roger Rose. Thank you. And and it was strange people. The people who started Fox did that, and I said, "You got the wrong guy. I'm a liberal Jewish guy. You don't want me." Yeah. And they took me and paid me large amounts of money, but I knew I wouldn't last. And so I had what's called a pay or pay contract, which even if they canned my butt, which I knew they would, it said I was allowed to do any and all voiceover. And they were like, voiceover? So they canned my butt, paid me, and then I went off and did my cartoons and commercials, and I was a very happy man. So yes, voiceover was always key to me. Okay. Always. Well, all my deals, everything, it always said you are allowed to do voiceover, because no one took it seriously until now, really. Yeah.
Well, even before that, was one of your first animated series you did
Snorks, and I'll tell you the best Snorks was, I was real lucky. I got on all these shows. Again, I was really young. Yeah. And all these old time actors from black and white TV shows were on there. Most of it was Hanna-Barbera, and I got to be at Hanna-Barbera towards the very end. It was so cool being there. And Mr. Barbera walking down the way. But the most, besides Snorks, that was cool, but was the Jetsons thing, that one?
Oh yeah.
I did the Jetsons movie. I played Nick Nova, Judy Jetson's boyfriend, and I maybe had 2 lines. But the great story on that one, and I love telling this because they brought the original cast from the 60s back to do this, and this is the 80s, I guess. Yeah, the 80s, and I'm again like 20, maybe 19, 20, and my voice teacher was Dawes Butler, and I don't know if you know who Dawes Butler was, but yeah. Look him up. He's all the Hanna-Barbera, Captain Crunch and Yogi Bear and all that, but also Elroy Jetson. And he was already in his mid-70s, had a stroke and was partially paralyzed. They brought back the original cast. So in this room is Judy Jetson, who was like in her 50s, Penny Singleton, who played Jane Jetson, who was Blondie from like the 30s, and when she talked, her dentures clapped. Mel Blanc, who was like Cosgrove or whatever it was, had a spittoon, who was spitting in the spittoon, and they were all old. And the guy who played George Jetson had a brain deficiency. They would have to whisper the dialogue in his ear, and he would say it. So I'm the youngest guy in this room, and there's an ambulance waiting outside because they're all old and have issues. And so we're all sitting in this room, and I'm next to Dawes Butler because I'm like his protege, and I got the cane and he's all paralyzed and everything. And so they go, and action. And then he goes, "Gee, Dad, this is great." I'm going, the 70-something-year-old man with a, "Gee, Dad, can I go to the Astro Burger?" And then Jetson, and then everyone just does their thing, and it's like, oh my God. And they go, cut, and then they're spitting at things, and I'm like, oh my God. And then and this is true, this is very well documented. I had already done my thing, but the guy who played George Jetson had to do pickups, and he was in my very good friend Andrea Romano's office, and he was taking a nap and he died while he was, he took a nap and died there, going, and I'll show you, I have this here. So I go up to Mel Blanc, because Mel Blanc is, the legend. And I go up to him and I go, "Excuse Mr. Blanc, if you could," takes out a manila envelope, takes this out and goes, "What's your name?" I go, "Roger." He goes, "Okay, there you go." So it's like, I didn't even say anything. He just handed it to me. So that was that at Hanna-Barbera, that was the most amazing thing. And I have you had Andrea Romano on at all? Have you talked to her? You know who she is?
Yeah, I know, but no, I haven't.
the most amazing director, the most amazing casting person. I love her dearly, and I owe a lot to her. She put me on as Superman.
Yeah,
And I'm one of the 10, I think 10, maybe you know, how many Supermans have there officially been Warner Brothers wise?
I think that's about right. Yeah.
And I've rated a couple of, I got like 9s. I'm very excited. That was so cool to me that the producers and everything, I found a picture of me. I used to wear I still do. I used to wear a Superman outfit under my clothes until I was about 7. And there's a picture of me, when I'm like 6 with a Superman thing. So it was beyond cool.
Mhm.
And yeah, that was one of the coolest things ever.
What about your experience on Gravedale High?
You're hitting me with all my good ones. Talk about amazing cast. You were talking about the TV movie. Ellen Burstyn, Tim Curry, Ricky Lake, Jonathan Winters, and it just went on and on, and it only lasted 13 episodes. I don't know why people have not rediscovered this. And of course, Rick Moranis. I was just a pig in whatski. First of all, Winters, I've been very lucky. I worked with him. I did a movie with him. I did a lot of stuff. And, he's a whack job, but he was really cool. Tim Curry was Tim Curry, hello. Oh, yes. But the biggest thing for me is I'm number one of all time is SCTV. That's my favorite thing, period. All my comedy comes from that kind of stuff. So I made a point of sitting next to Rick Moranis at all times. And it's, again, back to Hollywood. It's quite interesting. He would fly. It was very sad. His wife was dying at the time. So he would fly in on the, like he'd fly in, do like 3 episodes on a Friday and then fly right back to New York. So are you familiar with SCTV?
Yeah.
At all? Yeah. So you can get it on DVD and stuff, and there's going to be a special coming out and all. I mean, I'm just plotting. This is the guy. So I would ask him, I'd say, so when you did Jerry Todd, and he'd go, well, I wrote that and blah, blah, blah. And he'd give me just great details and things and I'm like, just a guy who's into comedy and improv and all that is like, oh my God, this is the greatest. And then I'd say, hey, tell me more about Dr. Tongue's House of 3D. And he goes, I didn't write that. And he turned his back to me. For the rest of the recording, he wouldn't talk to me. So the next time we record him, trying to find out if he wrote something, but it didn't say. So then I go, hey, play it again, Woody. Oh yeah, I wrote that and blah, 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 blah. And then if I hit one that he didn't write, but it was really cool. It was super cool.
Yeah. I know.
And Ricky Lake, we became friendly. She's a very nice lady. She played Cleopatra at that time, but she's far from that now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this was going back to live action, but around that same time, you got to be in the Lucy and Desi TV movie.
Yes. There's, Frances Fisher was amazing. The pressure on her was ridiculous. I could tell you many things about that. Johnny Carson said it was the greatest tragedy ever made and all that kind of junk. But I was the exposition guy. So I was Larry Ball, Lucy's brother. And every 10 years, Desi would walk into me and I would be in, like, it was World War II. So I was in a World War II outfit. Then it was 1940. Then it was 1950 and I'm in a 1950s suit. But it was always, Larry, why is Lucy mad at me? I go, well, Desi, and I give all the exposition.
Yeah.
But if the best dirt on that is the time Frances Fisher was dating Clint Eastwood. There was a lot of pressure on her. She was very nice and it was very hard, to do all that kind of stuff. So in the morning, she was very tense and there would always be, just stuff going on or whatever. And then lunchtime, Clint Eastwood would walk up, wave to everybody. He always wore an El Pollo Loco t-shirt. I always remember that. And he'd go in the trailer. An hour later, he'd leave. This was during lunch. And then she was always a lot calmer. I'm not saying what went on. I didn't see anything. I don't know. But all I could say is in the morning, it was like, we need to get this done. And then in the afternoon, it's all good. And they have a lovely child together. I think a daughter or something, if I don't remember.
And a couple years after that, I was really intrigued by this Love Bites, the Adamant vampire movie.
Oh yeah, yeah. Did you see that?
Yeah, a
Because
long time
I got money. I got it. What do I owe you? $20?
ago.
Um, I also have a good Clint Eastwood story to tell you that happened just recently, if you want. But
Okay.
you want to go back to Adamant first? I'll not to go over the place. That movie, in some respects, should have been better, but it was very low budget and everything. And Adamant, he and I had a kissing scene, and I don't think this is telling tales out of school. So when you do, like the idea was that I thought it was my girlfriend, and it ends up being Adamant, that chestnut. And so when you have to kiss somebody or something, everyone always says it's terrible, it's terrible. I wouldn't, well, in this case it was terrible, but it's not that bad, but it is very choreographed because the camera has to catch, and if you get your hand in front of you, then what, it's not going to work. So I'm reaching here, and they go, no, 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 because he's wearing a thing. And I went, oh, okay. And then I reached my hand and, oh, no, 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 you're gonna knock off. He had all these things to enhance his look that had nothing to do with the character, and I was gonna knock a lot of those things off if I moved my hand here, I moved my hand there. So don't do that. I'm like, okay. And what's really funny is Michelle Forbes was my love interest, as it were, in the movie. And if you know Michelle Forbes, very serious actress. And she just looks at me, and she's a vampire in this thing. And she looks at me and she goes, you are going to show me how to be funny in this scene. I'm like, I am. And she was great, but I just was like, you have to be on your toes. Can I tell you my Clint Eastwood story real quick?
Yeah.
So about right before COVID, one of my closest friends was playing up in Pebble Beach, and he invited me to his birthday dinner, and it was like 10 of us, and one of the 10 was Clint Eastwood. Now, I've met him, on and off. I'm a huge fan, not of his politics, but of him.
Mhm.
And so, this wasn't that long ago. It was like 3 years ago, and he's 80, late 80s. Now I think he's 90s. And really cool. Didn't, it was just 10 people having dinner, and I'm just, plotting. So one of the ladies has a couple glasses of wine and goes, Roger does a really good impression of you. And I have done him in Animaniacs, Tiny Toons. Like I'm the guy they call for Clint Eastwood.
Mhm.
And so it's not like, and I've, anyway. So he goes, oh yeah, well, let's hear it. And I go, when you meet a celebrity, you always, so I immediately I did Schwarzenegger because I didn't want to get myself embarrassed. So the dinner's over, we're leaving, and I go, Mr. Eastwood, it was a real honor. He goes, so? I go, so what? He goes, well. I go, do you want me to do you? He goes, I would think so. I go, well, what do I say? What do you want me to say? He goes, well, you have a lot of choices. Make my day. I know you were thinking maybe he was 5, and he starts doing all his lines. Well, a guy who's a voiceover guy, I'm peeing myself. I mean, he's doing them all in my face. So can I swear?
Yeah.
So I said, well, truthfully, my favorite line of yours was in the Gauntlet, where you said, fuck me. And he goes, that's my favorite line. I do that in my real life. That's my favorite one. That's it. I go, oh, thank you. It was the coolest moment. It was so cool.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened to me with Schwarzenegger, actually. I looped him in a couple of movies, looping meaning I did his dialogue when he couldn't make it.
Right.
And at a bar mitzvah, he was there. And I went, excuse me, Governor, I do your voice. I loop you in films. He goes, right, that's why I look bad. I go, no. I put your voice in certain parts where you can't make it. And so, they think it's you. He goes, right. Then they see me on screen, and they go, oh, you look ugly, and oh, you look fat. And that's because you're doing my voice. I went, oh, are you firing on me? And he goes, yes, I am. I go, thank you.
Wow.
Because, the secret to doing certain people, like I do The Rock and I do him, is Rock can act more, but you don't act. See, I remember going in the room, and some of the biggest voiceover guys in town were auditioning for Schwarzenegger, and they're all doing this thing. We're all going like the crazy. But the real, if you look at any of his films, everything is monotone. There's no acting to it. Everything he says is just really. And so when I got the job, the guy said to me, "You know why you got the job?" I go, "Why?" He goes, "You were the worst actor." I go, "All right, keep it all down here. You don't. He only once in a while does that thing. Most of the time, it's you know what I mean." So.
Well, and since I'm a really big fan of Married with Children, so what was your experience the multiple times you were on that?
They're bringing it back with a cartoon. I just talked to one of
Yeah.
the writers. One of the nicest casts, one of the most unaffected group of people. I was very lucky to do the last 2 seasons, all the different voices of animals and stuff. I did 2 episodes. They got it, as opposed to a lot of other sitcoms and stuff I did. They were on like 11 years, and as I said, I did the last 2 years. They all knew how lucky they were. They all knew there was no attitude. Everybody was having a grand time, but they also, strangely enough, Christina Applegate, really nice. Everybody was nice. But David Faustino, who played the son, I'm not saying he said this, but he sort of knew this was the moment.
Yeah.
This was the big moment for him. So he was so taking it in, so enjoying such a good guy. But I really respected him because he wasn't like, "Do you know who I am?" And, "Oh, I'm going to be this big star." It was more like, "This might be the end of the road here for this. I don't know, but I know how lucky I am." And I was very impressed by that.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was cool. I can't say, I have a side personal story, and then we should get to the cartoons because I got to blow soon. But what was I going to tell you? This is a side story. The guy who does Modern Family, the executive producer, he just signed $100 million deal. What's his name? He's like the big producer. I can't think of his name right now, but he did Modern Family. Anyway, he was telling me he was getting divorced. He had this huge, massive divorce, and he built his dream home. This is a good story nobody knows about. And so they were shooting Modern Family, and I'll think of his name in a minute. And he said to Ed O'Neill, "Listen, would you mind if I go to my former house? I have to pick up a box because I'm he's losing his dream home and all this because he was getting divorced from his wife." And Ed O'Neill is driving him to his house, and he goes, I got divorced, and it's really tough, but you lose a home, this is your life. Don't even worry about it." And then he said he and Ed O'Neill walk in the house, and Ed O'Neill looks around and goes, I was wrong. This is a great place. You need to do something." I just always thought that was, don't worry about it, buddy. Oh no, I was wrong.
Yeah.
So I always like that.
Mm-hmm.
But during all these things, I always did cartoons. And by the way, per all these shows you're mentioning, I would say to Katie Seagal, we talk about animation, Futurama, Billy West were my best pals. I did Knight Rider, and the Hoff was going, "You think I'd be good in animation?" They all wanted to talk to me about all that stuff. And it was very funny because most of them I would go, mm-hmm. Shirley Jones, I tried to get into animation because I said, what are you doing? But then her creepy husband screwed that up. But it was interesting because it was always a door into talking to any of these celebrities because everybody wants to do animation. So it never was a problem to strike up a conversation because I said, I do this, and they go, "Oh, I want to do that," and blah, 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 blah. So it was a great pass for me,
Mm-hmm. So it looks like it was your first anime experience Vampire Princess Miyu? I think that might have been the first.
Yeah, well, you're good. Anime is, I don't know what your other friends have said and people are talking, but anime is I love it because you need to be on your game.
Yeah.
As opposed to anything else. And I'll tell you where I learned, because I'm sure they've explained to you, you have to listen to the Asian track, then you have to match that actor's emotion, plus you have to get the dialogue out, plus you need to match within the mouth movements. It's very technical, but it's also really fun if you can bring the character through. And I'll tell you where I learned it. And it's sort of ironic you're mentioning that, because Amazon just bought MGM, the entire MGM library. And when I first started, before on camera, before anything, I did all these really awful, low budget movies that were made in Romania, and then they would hire an actor or an actress to be in the opening of the movie and the ending of the movie, and then they would cut to Romania. Then I come in and I do all the voices of all the men, and then there would be like somebody like Pat Music, if you know Pat, she'd come in and do all the female voices. And like there's a movie on Amazon that just came out, just terrible, called Savage Island, where it was Linda Blair for the day and the guy from Hogan's Heroes, clink, clink. And I just came in and there was a scene where I kill myself. There's like 6 guys and I'm all 6 guys. So I had to learn how to match voices with guys speaking phonetic English and also Romanian or whatever English or whatever language they were speaking. They'd say, okay, he's saying this. And so it was an amazing training, because then when I got to anime, they're saying, well, you're gonna have to do this, this, and this. I had to, my favorite was there was a guy in something Beast I did where he was Romanian and he had to say absolutely, and they actually had him say it in English, but he was doing it phonetically. So he went, yes. And I mean, I heard his track. He's going, and so what Lee. And I had to say absolutely on camera, you know, with his voice. Yeah. But it was like, how do I do that? So when it came time for anime and you're hearing whatever, and they're saying, you're saying good evening, you knew how to work it. Mm-hmm. So it was great training for me.
And then I know pretty crazy one that Michael Sorich directed you in, Bo. You remember being in that?
Yeah, what's cool is that the you know, you have people from all over the world on the line. So that one, you had to, there were certain Asian words that didn't transcribe to American words, and they were very, or English, you know, English. Not, I studied at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art for their summer program, and they were very big saying, we invented the language, you screwed it up. So, you see, there's training. You got to have training. You can't just walk into it. Because I'm sure your friends have told you, everyone goes, I'd be good at voiceover. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so that one, they were very open to altering the dialogue.
Mm-hmm. So then, that made it fun. So then, when Fire Emblem came around, was that just like a normal audition?
You know, yes, and also Chris Zimmerman, who is also an amazing director. She was part of that Hanna-Barbera group. Yeah. She knew what I could do, and what's great about Chris, and where I'm lucky, and so when I came into audition, she had me do, first she always would embarrass me and have me do impressions in front of all these people, because she just thought it was too funny, and she just throw stuff at me and I would do silly impressions. But she knew, because of my improv background, that they could throw anything at me. And one of the things, like Fire Emblems, was they had, and I'm sure some of your other guests have told you this, they had an expert where, like, if you were throwing a sword, it wasn't just, huh! You had to actually have they've told you about this, where you literally have certain sword grunts and movements? Have any of your other guests told you about that?
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's really tough. And actually, at one point I said, I'm out. I'm not going to do this job because I can't. It's killing my throat. You didn't just go, huh! You would have to go, huh! And then not, huh! Like, huh! And then it'd be like, huh! You know, there was like, because I guess when you're working a sword, as the experts would tell you, I never question any of that stuff, is that there is a stance and a muscle movement that you make when you lunge and you do this, but not just lunging. There was specific samurai things that they did, and then from other Asian countries, the movements. So it was tough. That was the tough part. Looping the voice was not that tough. That was fun. That was just acting. But when you have to, you know, your throat starts to go. Think about it. If you're doing, you know, like, and then, but oh no, that's not. You got to go, you know, blood's coming out. You know, yeah. My favorite one, which was not this game. There's a Mafia. I don't know if you have that, but I did Mafia.
Yeah.
I had to speak Italian. And I don't speak Italian, so they had an expert linguist in, because I had to do neighborhood Italian, and I had to, you know, I'm a mom guy, and talking like this, but I hate bafangul. So it was this beautiful Italian lady, and one of my lines was basically, "You smelly whore, you know, kiss my butt," something to the, but a little harder, right? But in Italian. So I don't even remember how to say it, but she would come in the room and she'd go, you know, "Bazza balala," you know, "puta vela vela," you know, saying "you smelly" in Italian. She goes, "Now repeat." And I go, she goes, "No, you're saying it to me like you're mad. You need to mean it." I'm like, I'm not going to say "you smelly" to you. I'm just not going to do that. She goes, "You need to, this is the job. You need to say it to me." So I would go, "You smelly." La, la, la. She goes, "Louder. You smelly." La, la. She goes, "More." And I'm saying it in Italian, you know, "You whore." La, la. She goes, "Mean it." And I'm like, and suddenly I'm going, "Oh, this is great. You smelly." You know, and then she looks at me like with a little, like, you know, face, like, and walks out, and I'm like, you know, just totally took me down, as it were, because it was like, you're taught not to speak that way, and there I am just saying it in Italian and everything. And that was also like, with Takumi and all those other, you're saying certain things that you, I mean, me as an American, don't understand, and they have meaning that I really don't understand. So they stop and they say to you, and I hope I've honored it, because it's some of it, you know, I don't know what the heck I'm saying, and they tell me, and you say it, but you sometimes feel like an idiot,
Yeah.
because it's not from your upbringing, you know, from the golden harvest of the, you know, the 15th son, and I don't want to piss off anybody,
Mhm.
you know.
Well, do you think, because they're pretty different, do you think that you related more to Takumi over Niles?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think much more, because more drama in his character, you know, and sometimes they don't explain things to you,
Right.
and sometimes they do, and then you see on screen you're doing, because remember, this has already been made, more or less. I mean, they come back and do it again, and you're going, why am I doing that? Oh, well, that's the thing. And you're like, really? Okay. If you say so. I don't know why I'd be doing that, but that's the character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying like, oh, that's not my motive. Oh, that was at a cartoon session for Pinky and the Brain. I can't say the name of the performer, but no, I'm sorry, it was Tiny Toons. And this guy loved to take everyone else's roles,
Oh.
and he was very talented. But for whatever reason, there's a real in anime and just regular animation, we're all a very tight knit group of people, and we're all very supportive of each other. And like, if you do a voice, and like Rob Paulson, who's a wonderful guy, he'll go, "That's, nobody can do that one better," or he'll say, "Hey man, maybe just a little faster." You know, we talk with each other, but we don't criticize. We just try to help. And this one guy, I remember we're doing this session, and not me, but somebody else did a voice, and and so the director goes, "Okay, great," and then the talent goes, "Excuse me, I'd like to take a swing at Bob's role." What? That's funny. No, 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 really, I think I can do it better than him.
Wow.
And it was like, oh no. So the director, I say the name of the director because that's not gonna, she's, you know, hardcore, Ginny McSwain. She goes, "Okay, go ahead, do it." And so the guy does it, and she goes, "Did you get that out of your system?" And he goes, "Yes." And she goes, "Don't ever do something like that again, or you're out the door." And it was like, wow. The other thing about Ginny, who's also another great director, I like to mention these directors because they bring it all out of us.
Yeah.
She, when you do her cartoons, she'd come in, and this is unlike any other cartoon, you know, because, you know, they've told you that we're in like a group usually, or we were. Now, because of COVID, it's a different thing, but we were like, it's like a little radio play. We're all in a group, and we read the script out loud, and then we tape it. So she comes in, she goes, "Hello, everyone. You're all professionals. I've worked with all of you. I assume and hope that you've read the script, because we're not going to rehearse. We're going to go right into it. You are professionals. If you can't handle it, you shouldn't be in this room. Page 1." And you're like, because, you know, you're just going. And she was right, by the way. I agree with her 100%. If you have your chops, that's the fun of it all. It's like you're bouncing off these people, you're doing it, and that's what it's all about. But man, when you hit the post and there's somebody who doesn't, and by the way, that's the other person I want to make a mention of before we go on this stuff is Mark Hamill. I'd say of all the people I've worked with in animation, features, I'd say the word genius is a big word that I don't throw around a lot. Some comedians, but in the animation world, I give him that. I did Batman with him. I've done a million other things. Plus he's a friend, but his dedication in a room, specifically Joker, but everything. We did Cartoon Next. We've done a million things together. Is so, first of all, he's everything you hope he'd be as a Star Wars fan, but and he's a really funny guy, but he is a genius in the room. That's all I can say.
Well, one of the biggest things that people were wondering is why didn't you come back for the characters in Fire Emblem Heroes, the mobile game?
First of all, I want to thank everybody who has said nice things. And the answer to that question is probably different casting people. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm guessing that they just come in and they just replace you. A good example of that is, the game wasn't as big as it is now. And I really appreciate, because I've gotten some really great comments, and it means a lot. It really, really does. And best example would that be Happy Feet. I was in Happy Feet. I was the leopard seal. I eat some ketchup, my little cupcake. And then did a Happy Feet 2. And in Happy Feet 2, Happy Feet 1 was more or less done in LA and Australia. George Miller, who, by the way, again, another person I can say was one of those, where like Edwards, where they wanted you to do you. They didn't care. Although, interesting side note, I did do Schwarzenegger the first time, and then Schwarzenegger became governor, and they got scared politically, so that's when I had to change his voice.
No.
But Happy Feet 2, they said they're doing it all out of Australia, and they lied that some of the main characters were done out of LA, but they weren't going to pay me to do my same character, and they just hired somebody else. I mean, my agent called, and they said, oh, no, we're doing it all out of Australia. The truth is, they did do some of the characters, like Danny Mann, who did both films, but they didn't use me because they didn't want to pay.
No.
And I think it's probably in the same thing. That's my best guess.
Yeah, and
that's all I know.
There were just several people who were thanking you for being in that game, since it helped them through really serious stuff.
That it's just that I didn't realize that my performance made a difference, and that's what it's all about, man. And it's really funny because your fans, they take it to what it's meant for, and as a performer, you just want to get the job. And then once you get the job, then it's fun. Then it's like creating for you guys to try to give you that moment that hits you. And so apparently I got lucky, and that's what it's, I mean, I'm bummed. I wish they could have used me for the other ones, but that's, either money, unions, different people come in. There's no rhyme or reason. My business is, the highs are highs and the lows are lows, and there's not much you can do about that. And it just, there's been some people who've been really good to me and kept me in places where I could have been canned. And then there's other people who just go, okay. And that's the end of it, and there's not much I can do about that. So all I can do is just keep on chugging. But like Andrea Romano putting me in as Superman.
Yeah.
Holy moly, that was so cool. There was a thing I did with James Arnold Taylor, an anime thing. Do you remember? Maybe you might know which one I did. It was like where we're brothers. Oh gosh, I want to say Thunder. Oh man, that was crazy because they didn't have all the dialogue, and it was an anime, and we literally had to go off the animation for most of our dialogue because they screwed up the audio.
Oh,
and that was crazy. And it was just the two of us in a room trying to make heads or tails of who our characters were and creating it along the way. And that's gotten some nice things. Oh, and I should mention, for all you horror fans, the Reanimator, Reanimator 1 and 2. Stuart Gordon. Do you know who Stuart Gordon is? He was so cool. And the reason I mentioned that is because in the first one, my head gets amputated and I perform oral sex on a woman. I hold my head and Stuart Gordon made me do all the noise on that one. So then he brings me back for Reanimator 2, and I'm thinking, well, he can't make, and because they were laughing at me because I'm having to go and all this kind of stuff with that. But the second one, he has me masturbate in a insane asylum. So it's like, and I said to him, what noise do you need me to make on this? He goes, I don't know, but I'm making you do it. And so the camera has a guy from behind so I don't even understand how he was able to use his hands, but that's another thing altogether. But they shot the guy from behind and I'm having to make this noise. And it's like, it was just a mess with me. And it's in the movie. They're both in the movies.
Just a couple other things that I had before my final question.
Yes, please. Yeah, because I got to rock and roll soon. But please, I don't. Nothing to be rude. It's just I have to do. Just so you know, the headlines of. I think it's the headlines of Cincinnati. Let's see. Came in. Oh, here we go. Gas prices are continuing to rise. Okay. Anyway, yes.
Well, you maybe remember without even looking at it, but obviously Niles has a lot of his lines come through this like sexual thrill for fighting that he has.
Gee, I wonder why they cast me, huh? Chris Zimmerman's, who put me in most of these, her nickname for me is Sleazebag. Oh. Go ahead. I call her Zimmer Lips. Go on, yes.
Well, then the other thing before my final question was just.
Oh no! What about Niles though?
Oh, just that he stands out with a lot of fans because of that whole persona that he has. That everything is thrilling for him in that way.
Well, casting is good.
Yeah.
I'm known for my innocent yet rude euphemisms for body parts. Mm-hmm. And I can't say any anymore because you get sued or whatever, but yes, that was not a tough stretch for me. Because they would always go, Rose, knock it off. But it was never, I never am harassing anybody. I'm just making self-deprecating comments. And I will tell you that Huey, Dewey, and Louie was Pamela Adlon. Who's the lead in Rugrats? She's a friend of mine. I feel terrible. Tommy Pickles.
E.G. Daily.
Yeah, E.G. Daily and Jeannie Elias. They were Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and I was, Kent Powers, the man of the hour. And they were the dirtiest ladies. The three of them would just say the most obscene stuff that I can't repeat. And their greatest pleasure was to make me turn red. And it was just like, anyway, go on. What's your next question?
Well, just if I typed out a Takumi line, would you be able to do it?
Where is it? My bow, my precious bow. It looks different, but as long as it can kill. Is that right? Yeah. All right. I hope because I'd love to see the actual original and I could match it. But what are you gonna do?
Well, my final question is always asking, what do you want your legacy to be?
If I was able to get one person to react to something in this way, then I've done my job, and I thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks. I'm glad that we got to do this.
Thank you very much. It was a real pleasure, and I hope I gave you stuff that you can use and everything like that.
Yeah, totally.
All right. It's been a real pleasure.
Bye.
Nice to meet you. Bye.